Welcome to the Plot Thickens, the unofficial version, the stories that happen while stories are happening. Good morning, I'm Jan Falconer. I'm a children's author and welcome to the Plot Thickens. The Graceful Swan. You know, I sometimes think life is a bit like watching a swan. From a distance, everything looks wonderfully calm, elegant, peaceful, effortless. Then you remember what's actually happening. Those legs are paddling like mad underneath. This week was definitely a graceful swan week. It actually began beautifully. On Saturday, I caught up with a friend who now lives in Scotland. He and his wife were visiting Orkney on a cruise. So we did exactly what you do when friends come to Orkney. We drank some sublime coffee. We discovered a new favourite coffee place in Stromness, in what used to be an old bank. We visited some places that mean a great deal to me, and of course, we went to see the stones. Now, I should probably explain what I refer to are the standing stones of Stromness, Odin's stone, and the ring of Brodgar, and I refer to them as Mick, Keith, and Ronnie. I do this because they're old stones. Perfectly reasonable, really. We didn't find any blue forget-me-nots or fall into a time dimension as an outlander. But if we did, I was wearing enough gemstones for a number of visits to the past, present, and future. So no visits to Jamie and Claire Fraser. Or were there? Orkney is quite busy at the moment. Not quite COVID busy, when it felt like everyone and his dog, maybe his cat, had discovered every beach, every road, and every possible parking space. But it's busy enough. Cruise ships, visitors, camper vans, people peering at maps and looking slightly windswept. Thankfully, while most of the south has been scorchingly hot, Orkney has remained mostly civilised, breezy, occasionally dramatic, naturally, but not melting. So there was time in the garden. Yes, the roses and peonies are having a magnificent year. And there is something deeply soothing about standing amongst the roses when you've spent hours deciding whether a sentence should stay where it is, move 3 paragraphs down, or simply be taken outside and quietly dealt with. Because underneath the peaceful surface, the paddling had already begun. There was a podcast to edit, scripts to polish, descriptions to write, cutaways to think about, editorial discussions to have. Not arguments, of course, robust, creative conversations. It's astonishing how much debate can be generated simply by moving one sentence about 3 inches further down a page. And then there was the writing. Not always the tidy, finished writing that looks impressive in a document. A lot has been scribblings in a notebook, thinking writing, catching the idea before it wanders off writing. You know the sort. The mini-stories are there. Sukie is ahead. The world is growing up. I simply need to cut, shape, and rearrange. Which sounds wonderfully easy, but it's rather like the swan. Then came the kittens, one kitten that caused quite an uproar. Sukie, Abby, and Webber were not impressed with its mother, Willie. There were concerns, serious concerns. Questions were being asked about maternal responsibility. Then we discovered Willie didn't have one kitten. She had 4. 4 kittens! Ah! That rather changed the entire political landscape. Willie's older kittens are quite unhappy. Abby has gone into permanent security duty because she clearly is worried that there will be an influx into her house. Inspector Webber is absolutely appalled. He believes we are now one kitten away from total collapse. Queen Sukie, however, has taken a different view. More courtiers. Excellent. The only creatures delighted by the development appear to be the farmer, Daddy Dearest, and Queen Sukie. Everyone else is braced for constitutional upheaval. Meanwhile, I conducted a financial spring clean. Now, this is always a dangerous activity. You start by checking one thing and somehow end up discovering a small collection of sums quietly slipping out of your bank account every month without so much as by your leave. The exchequer of Queen Sukie took a dim view, a very dim view. There were 2 wine subscriptions, one perfectly ordinary in the UK and one from New Zealand, 2 paddocks. Sam Neill's wine. You know, Sam Neill. Oh my lordy. Beautiful stuff. He has a talent, not just for acting, making delicious wine. Pinot Noir. Unfortunately, the last expensive delivery from New Zealand appears to have been delivered somewhere else, just not here. Possibly to a neighbour. Whether it was left there for safekeeping or became the centrepiece of somebody else's dinner party, I could not possibly say. Either way, the exchequer of Queen Sukie made her decision. No more of that. Now, I do love wine. I understand wine. I enjoy good wine, but I also appear to have accumulated rather a lot of it. And these days, I simply can't be bothered drinking it. The whiskey collection is quite different. Some of that is an investment. I know what it is. I know why it matters. I can happily talk about Orkney, Jura, Isla, Highland whiskies, peat, water, casks, distilleries, single malts, blends, until the cows come home. And whoever I'm talking to begins to have their eyes glaze over. So I'll stop now. I love the craftsmanship. I love the history. I absolutely adore the smell. Drinking it, not so much these days. The vodka, however, has found a far more useful purpose. Vanilla pods, vodka, and thyme. And now I have the best homemade vanilla essence I've ever used. Absolutely knock your socks off vanilla. Thank you, Barefoot Contessa. Queen Sukie's exchequer thoroughly approves of making existing assets work harder. Royal funds, after all, should be reserved for the essentials. And the essentials are cat treats, whiskers, Felix, emergency dreamies, and goody-goodies. And a modest provision for the barn cat kingdom, although Daddy Dearest would like it noted that they're extremely well catered for. We've also been clearing space, selling things we no longer needed, letting go of things that have done their job, making room. That feels important, not dramatic, not heroic, just useful. My cold finally packed its bags too. Unfortunately, it moved into Daddy Dearest. The cats have been deeply concerned, by which I mean they've supervised his recovery by lying on him, near him, or precisely where he's hoping to sit. Okay, yes, from a distance it probably looks like a very quiet week. Coffee with friends, a little gardening, a few roses, some cats, a bit of tidying up, but underneath, podcasts, editing, writing, notebook pages, 4 kittens, a financial review, missing wine, homemade vanilla, a recovering husband, a suspicious Inspector Weber, a vigilant Lady Abby, and Queen Sukie calmly expanding both her court and her treasury. Not a bad week, really, even if the swan legs are still feeling just a little tired. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, I realised something. I may not have written as many finished pages as I had hoped, but I was still writing. I was still collecting moments, listening for stories, making space, noticing what mattered, because sometimes, before the story appears on the page, they spend a little while living in your life. And that's it. That is when the plot thickens. Thank you for joining me for The Plot Thickens. Until next time, keep noticing the stories that happen while the stories are happening.